Hello and welcome to episode 42 of Hitting the Bar, the football podcast. I'm Chris Karle.
And I'm Geoff Saunders.
Well, Geoff, finally, Premier League starts today.
It starts today, yeah.
We'll be looking at this evening's games and the games coming up on Friday. My team, Tottenham, against Man United, and then the games over the weekend a little later. But a lot has happened since the last podcast. We will get on to the German Bundesliga in a moment, but first, your trivia question.
In the year 1973-74, Mick Channon finished the season as top goal scorer. Why is that unique?
So he finished as top goal scorer, but it's strange and unique.
Yeah, but not. And what is unique is not that that's the only time he's ever done it. There is something else that's unique.
Ah, right. So yeah, because he was a prolific goal scorer.
He was indeed. Yeah.
So we will find out the answer to that at the end of the show. First of all, congratulations go to Bayern Munich. Of course, they won the league. 8 league titles in a row now, Geoff.
Yeah, and hard to see how anyone can challenge them, to be honest.
No, 8 in a row. 11 games unbeaten.
And Lewandowski scored again, and the goal that won them the league.
Yeah, it was quite interesting because I was looking at the stats. So he scored the goal that won them the league. He's got 31 goals this season.
In the league?
In the league.
He's got 43 in total.
In total. That is phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean, there are teams in the Premier League who haven't scored that many with all their players.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, I go to Poland quite a lot on business, and the talk in Poland over the last season was that he was spent, he's past it, he's concentrating too much on his fashion company, etc., etc. Well, 43 goals suggests that's not true.
That is, I mean, it's just ridiculous. 40. I mean, that's double what you want off your main striker, isn't it? You're looking for 20 goals a season. That is incredible. But they won 1-0 away from home behind closed doors. But they also had a player sent off and still won the league. Looking at the stats from the Bundesliga, actually there have been, as you mentioned, more away wins than home wins since they restarted.
That's right. Yeah.
Quite a big difference.
It's a huge difference. Yes.
Yeah. So well done to Bayern Munich and well done to Lewandowski. I mean, he's just incredible. The Premier League starts this week, so we've had all the managers talking about how the season's going to go. I think we have to turn our attention first, because I'm a Tottenham fan and because it's there. We'll turn our attention to Arsenal. We call Arteta the groundsman. Yeah. Perhaps you'd like to explain that and then tell us all about what he's been saying this week in preparation for the Premier League.
Right. Well, we call him the groundsman because, first of all, nobody could understand what he ever did at Manchester City, apart from put the cones out in training. One of his early press conferences when he was appointed at Arsenal was about how he was preparing the pitch. So he's the groundsman.
Right, yes. So basically, yes, that's what he does.
He's the groundsman at the Wanderers, yeah.
Yeah, rather than the manager or the coach.
Yeah.
But what's he been doing then? What's he been doing this week to prepare his team?
Well, he's been talking a lot. I mean, at the end of last week, there were press conferences where he was talking about how what he does is he talks to the players. He motivates them. And at City, he was the conduit between the players and the manager, which strikes me as a kind of nothing sort of job, to be quite honest with you. But he's doing the same with the Wanderers. And this week it's continued. It's all me, myself, and I. It's what he is doing to put right the problems of the last 3 years. And I think to me that's a sort of he's broken one of the rules of football, that you don't trash the people who came before you. Even Mourinho, I don't think, does that.
Yeah, actually that's a good point, because I know you have no time for Jose Mourinho.
I don't know. And
of course he says he trash talks and all that kind of thing, and but I don't think any club he's gone to, he's never said, I've got to fix this, what a mess the previous manager has left me, dear oh dear. He just gets on with the job. In fact, when he took over at Tottenham, he said, I've got some phenomenal players.
Yeah, exactly.
To go and actually trash the previous regime is, I mean, that's what governments do, isn't it? All this unemployment is not our fault, it's the previous government.
So, very much so. I mean, the quote was from the groundsman: "We haven't been able to achieve the goals we wanted in the last 3 years, and there is a reason behind it." I mean, shut up. If we stand still, that gap will become bigger and bigger. I haven't come here to accept that.
Good God, I have a dream.
Yeah,
come on.
Yeah, there's no I in team and all the rest of it. But
yes,
but it's a reality. You don't build a team. You don't build the collective mindset by me, myself, and I. I think it's just shameful.
I mean, you mentioned there Mourinho. There are some managers who can, of course, like Mourinho, for example, be called egotistical or in that I, me, and myself mindset. Very often, it's done to deflect away from the players and to deflect attention. But this is clearly just trash talk, isn't it? This is just look at me, how great I am. I'm going to solve all the problems that were created before me and dumped on me.
Yeah, but if Mourinho did it, then he has a body objective work, he can say, okay, this is what I've won.
That's a good point, yeah.
And you have to say, well, okay. But, more than that, did you ever hear Sir Alex Ferguson say anything like that?
No.
He was always us, we, the team, the club.
Yeah, I mean, actually, going back to Mourinho, that's what I've heard a lot from him at Tottenham, is we and the team and the guys and all that kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, and he could, and of course Ferguson even, could turn around and go, yes, but look at my record. Yeah. Arteta can't say, do you know how many cones I can put out in a minute? It's not like he's got anything to boast about, or at least to hold up and say, look, I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and their results before the lockdown were hardly brilliant, were they?
No.
I mean, let's be honest. It was kind of ho-hum, and they've been travelling along at 1.4 points per game. If their next 10 games are 1.4 points, they don't make the Europa League.
No, wow. Tonight's game, of course, they are playing Manchester City. Guardiola has said, well, Arteta obviously knows a lot about our team, because he was the person that talked to them. Yeah. So that'll be an interesting game. But if they lose that, that leaves them on the same amount of 9 games as everybody else, because the games played tonight are the ones in hand. That would leave them in danger, as you say, of no Europa League.
Yeah, and if you look at their recent and even not so recent history, it's been one of perpetual disappointment. The Wanderers have not won at a Big Six club in the league since January 2015.
Tonight at Manchester City, unlikely then. Well, so you're saying they haven't won away at a top 6
since January 2015.
Not even at Tottenham. Goodness me.
And have a guess who scored the goals that night.
All right, go on.
Santi Cazorla and Olivier Giroud.
Yes, I remember them well.
Exactly. Santi Cazorla. It's that long ago.
Wow. Yeah. He was a big thing at the time, but that's 5 years ago.
And they've not been in the Champions League for the past 3 seasons.
Which leads us to our big story, I suppose. Arsenal's top scorer on 17 goals this season, second only to Jamie Vardy on 19. Aubameyang, he scored 61 goals in 97 games for Arsenal. That is quite sensational.
That's brilliant, yeah.
He's 31. His contract runs out next July.
End of next season, yeah.
End of next season. He's 31. He's asking for 300,000 a week, and they are dithering.
I know, yeah. Aubameyang said last week in various press conferences he has had, or his representatives have had, a number of discussions with the club, but the club have not yet made an offer.
It beggars belief.
It beggars belief. It's going to be another Ramsey, isn't it? They're going to lose a player for nothing that has a big value. Sign him up for a 3-year deal for 300,000 a week, and if you really don't want to pay it, sell him next season, but get some money for him.
Yeah, I mean, they could actually end up... have they learnt nothing from... I mean, it's not just Ramsey, is it? It's happened, over and over again with top players, and here they are again. Aubameyang, nobody's going to get them that amount of goals. I mean, he scored 17 goals for Arsenal, who've not been firing on all cylinders this season.
That's right.
There's Jamie Vardy on 19 goals, but he's playing for Leicester, who've been second and third all season, so he's had a bit of service, I'd imagine.
Yes.
I understand 300,000 is a lot of money, and a lot of clubs are struggling, and Arsenal are known for trying to keep that down, much like Tottenham, I suppose, but he's your top striker. Where are you going to get another... How much are they going to have to pay for another striker to replace him?
Well, I mean, you're going to be approaching, 70 million plus, aren't you?
Right, so they've got to get rid of him. Hopefully, if they say, no, you're not having 300,000, you're going, they'll sell him at the end of this season for, I don't know, whatever. They've got to replace him with somebody younger to prove intent, the reason they got rid of him.
Yeah, I think it's extremely difficult, because who would buy him? Who would buy him for a price that Arsenal would deem to be acceptable? Let's be honest, it's not going to be one of the elite clubs in Europe, is it?
True,
with him being 31. They tend not to pay that sort of money for people over 30. So, I can't see anywhere for them to go rationally other than give him a big contract and then try and sell him end of next season or something.
It's a dilemma in the sense that you're not going to get a lot of money for him, so you might as well actually just pay him and hang on to him and hope he gets 15 to 20 goals for you next season, and then either as you say, extend his contract and then let him go for a cheap price, by which time you've had time to find somebody else.
Yeah, look back at Liverpool when they sold Suarez. The question that they did not seem to ask themselves themselves is, okay, we can sell him, we can get a lot of money, but where are we going to get 30 goals a season from? And they spent a lot of money on midfield players, and the following season they really struggled because they just didn't score goals.
Yeah.
So, looks like Arsenal are going to do the same, just shoot themselves in the foot again.
And the other point which you made at the beginning of that whole conversation, I suppose, is it's possible that they could not have European football next season. What top striker is going to go and say, yes, I'll take Aubameyang's place for less than 300,000, because otherwise there's no justification, and I am good enough for Arsenal?
Yeah,
Who is that player?
Well, they don't exist. Their only hope, I guess, is to take somebody very young who will use them as a stepping stone. But then the Wanderers have moved from becoming a top 4 club to down amongst the Evertons, and look back in the day to when I started watching football. 3 of the big clubs in the country were Sunderland, Everton, and Sheffield Wednesday.
Yeah.
And only one of them is still in the Premier League and competing for a place in the big vase, not even the Champions League.
No. I mean, Everton perpetually finishing 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th. That's
in the Everton spot. Yeah.
The Everton spots, and that they were a big club. Sheffield Wednesday, where are they now? Sunderland.
Yeah.
I mean, they've really hit bad times. That's the Aubameyang thing. We think Arsenal are falling for they're doing their usual thing as they did with Ramsey et al.
Yeah, and if you listen to what the groundsman is saying this week, it seems to be all about retaining Bukayo Saka. And now we're talking here about a very, very small wage cost for him. Why are they not breaking the bank to keep him? But he's only had half a season. Are you really saying that the thing which defines success or failure for you this season is that you keep hold of a graduate from the academy?
That's your. They're struggling to do that. That's it. That's your big thing for the week.
That shows you how far they've fallen in the last few years.
It does. It certainly does. So bad times ahead possibly for Arsenal. Your prediction for tonight's game then, Man City against Arsenal?
I'll say 3-1 to City.
3-1 to City. I'm going to go for 2-0 to City. Now, of course, by the time we get this edited and published, the game will be about to kick off.
Yeah, so we can only look stupid.
Yeah, so we can only look stupid, but we're both going for a City win.
Yeah, and remember that if the Wanderers should happen to win tonight, then the league is as good as over, because Liverpool only need one win between now and the end of the season.
Yeah, because that'll put City out of the race. Yeah, okay, so we shall see what happens. The other game tonight, which is also a game in hand, is Aston Villa-Sheffield. That'll probably be over by the time we post this. That's at 7 o'clock Central European time.
Yeah, that is an intriguing game, actually. So the one thing that we don't know, which Kirk said in the radio show last week, is how good are people going to be coming back from this? It's almost like a restart and everybody starts from scratch again.
Yes.
So, do the league positions actually matter in terms of how well the team is going to play? So, will Aston Villa have spent this time introducing the players to each other? And I mean, they bought so many players.
They did,
before the season started. And they're good players too. I mean, they've got good records in Europe, the ones they bought, and they just, don't appear to have met when you see them on the pitch.
But they've had all this time, maybe. Yeah, it is kind of like starting a new season. Nobody knows what team they're coming up against. They can't say, oh, that's Aston Villa, they've been dreadful all season. That was 3 months ago. Who knows who they are now?
Yeah, I think Villa have been very, very unlucky with decisions and injuries, and their players are much better than the league position they're in. Having said that, I'm a West Ham supporter, and we will go down in history as the best side ever to be relegated.
Yes, yeah. Just a quick thing that I was reading yesterday about how games will be televised, and the Premier League and Sky in particular, of course, who've got the majority of the games. What they're doing is they are getting a load of chants and singing and crowd noise from multiple, hundreds of different games, and editing them together to give you that atmosphere, so that they can then bring in a crowd shout when there's a goal and all that. Very, very clever sort of way they're going to have to master it all. But they are cutting out all the swear words, so I don't know if they'll have enough material. I mean, yeah, really, they've got to go through every single chant and every cry and shout when the crowd are mumbling in the background, and cut out all the swearing and everything to make sure that they do.
Who the
Sky
bleep, are you? Yeah.
Who the beep beep? Yeah. So I don't know how that's going to work.
The bleep bleep?
Yeah. It's going to be very strange. Yeah. There has been one score this week already in England. actually.
Really?
Marcus Rashford 1, Boris Johnson 0.
Oh, brilliant. For Rashford. I mean, top man. Well done.
Yes, for those that don't know, of course, Marcus Rashford, 22, I think he is, footballer for Manchester United. We'll let that ride.
We can forgive him for that.
Yeah, has been campaigning and begging, basically, the government in the United Kingdom to provide free lunches, free meals for children during the summer break, because obviously there's been no school. Normally they get free meals and all this kind of thing, and the government said no, they won't do it. They then U-turned and said yes, all right, because a lot of pressure. He did a lot of interviews, a lot of people backing him. He has now, almost single-handedly, really, provided food to 1.3 million children who would be in poverty otherwise and starving or hungry.
Well, they are in poverty anyway, but yes, they will be less hungry. And I have to take issue with the one word you used there. You said begging. He didn't beg, actually. He presented very rational arguments. Yes,
sorry, it was a wrong choice of words.
If you listen to him, okay, you can see he's not spent a lot of time in school or university
or elocution lessons or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. But his arguments were bang on. It was very well presented, very well done, and he spoke from the heart. So well done to him.
He did. Well done to Marcus Rashford. I watched a couple of interviews. He was very well spoken, very rational argument, but a very heartfelt argument. You can't. He kept saying this is Britain in 2020. Children should not be left to go hungry, and it's a very simple argument, but he put it so well. The government had no choice.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it seems extraordinary to me that we're in 2020 and there is any sort of debate about children going hungry. Isn't that a Victorian thing?
Yeah, yes. I mean, it should have been left in 100 years ago. It's an absolute disgrace, and it took a 22-year-old footballer to put the moral compass of the government back on. I mean, it's disgraceful that he even had to do that.
I think it would take a lot more than one footballer to put the moral compass of this government back on. But to try and force them to do a good thing that is the right thing, well played to him.
Yeah, so well done to Marcus Rashford. Quick shout out to Raheem Sterling, who is also a campaigner.
Indeed.
Who's sort of been left behind in all this.
Yeah, that's right. And interesting that the things that Sterling has said over the past 3 years have just got him into trouble with the Daily Heil and newspapers like that. Rashford has sort of cut them out of the argument, gone straight to the people. Maybe that's the answer.
Yeah, I mean, the Daily Fail and all that, and the Daily Heil. I mean, they could not possibly nobody could turn around and say, no, you can't feed children. I mean, even they were stumped, I think.
Yeah, I'm sure there's somebody in their head office who's trying to look for the tattoos that they can invent some story about.
Yeah, that was Sterling's downfall, wasn't it? All right, let's move on then from Marcus Rashford and his incredible campaigning. Well done, that young man. They are playing, his team, Manchester United, are playing Tottenham on Friday, again behind closed doors. We'll have a look at that towards the end of the show with all the other games. Now, a topic that we've talked about on this podcast and on the radio show that Geoff and I do for 93.6 Global Radio, thank you to them, on the Costa del Sol. We spoke on Saturday about the takeover of the Magpies, Newcastle United, by a Saudi Arabian consortium. That's kind of run into a little bit of problem.
Yeah, it has. Put aside the fit and proper person test. We're dealing with the sovereign fund of Saudi Arabia. So their oil money gets put into this big fund, and they invest in companies all around the world. The person who's the chairman of that fund is basically the boss of Saudi Arabia, and also the person in charge of Be Out, who are the company that have been accused and found guilty of piracy. And that piracy involves selling the rights, or selling Premier League football matches, which beIN, who are a Qatar-based company, BT and Sky have the rights for. So they have taken money away from existing Premier League sponsors. So the situation we're in is that murder by Saudi Arabia appears to be okay.
Yes.
But stealing money from another Premier League sponsor appears not to be okay.
Yes, well, the Bundesliga, the Premier League, FIFA, UEFA, La Liga, they've all tried to bring proceedings in Saudi courts. They've been blocked by the government
of Saudi Arabia.
Of Saudi Arabia.
At the head of which is the man who's the head of the investment fund who are buying jongleurs. So
it's all very, very shady. But the World Trade Organization have now come in, and basically they are saying that Saudi Arabia's business practices are not on a level with the rest of the world.
Correct.
And that means now basically the takeover has been looked at again.
Indeed, and we can only hope that people in the Premier League League grow some balls and don't just follow the money.
Yeah, I mean, they have got, the head of the chief executive of beIN has written to Premier League clubs and warned them about Newcastle. He's asked the Premier League to look again, so that could be on the back burner. That's a 300 million takeover, which doesn't sound like a lot of money in this day and age, but it is Newcastle.
Well, exactly, and the sovereign fund from Saudi Arabia, who are looking to take 80% of Jongleurs, 300 million is nothing to them, absolutely nothing.
While we're talking about Newcastle, during the week I saw this story from back in September 1997, probably the last time the Magpies had anything really to celebrate. They beat Barcelona 3-2 at St James's Park in the Champions League. They had in Luis Enrique, Figo, Rivaldo in their lineup, but Newcastle had, do you remember Faustino Asprilla?
Yeah, I remember that goal he scored from just inside the opposition half, outside of the right foot, bent it in at the far post. Yeah.
There you go, yeah. The problem being that he'd been on international duty just before the game, and instead of going, and this is according to him, instead of going back to Newcastle, I went to my ranch and had a party with lots of girls.
Sounds like Asprilla, yeah.
And came back very late and just made it in time for the game. Kenny Dalglish, the then manager, was absolutely furious, but he then went on and scored a hat-trick and became a hero. Instead of his move to Newcastle, he turned up in a fur coat at St James's Park. It was snowing, unbelievably, from Colombia, which is a bit warmer. And he said the one thing that struck him immediately, although he couldn't understand a word anybody was saying, the women were divine. I don't know how many girlfriends. It's a bit of a character, but turning up from a party and banging 3 past Barcelona is a thing of legend.
Yes, indeed. But he is a character, isn't he?
Yes, yeah, brilliant. But that is the Newcastle of the past. Champions League 23 years ago.
Yes, indeed.
And now worth 300 million, possibly.
Yeah.
And if things continue, though, not this season, but possibly next season, they could be staring relegation in the face.
Yeah, well, certainly Ashley has not invested nearly enough to bring the squad up to the standard that it really should be at. Benitez did a fantastic job in keeping them in the division, and I'll have to hold my hand up and admit that I got Steve Bruce wrong. He's actually quite a decent manager. Yeah,
well, I think I agreed with you at the time. I could not see it. I mean, this record isn't outstanding. He's not won any. No great shakes. However, he's done all right, actually, Steve Bruce. Yeah.
Yes, he has.
He's a sort of player's manager, though, isn't he? I think he's probably got the lads playing together. You haven't got the skill lads, but we're in it together kind of thing.
Well, exactly. He's the sort of guy you want to keep you in the league. He's not going to get you into a European position.
No, I just think...
fair play to him. I mean, he's done what he was hard to do.
But tough times ahead for Newcastle.
I think so.
Yeah, definitely. We spoke last week, Geoff, about Hearts being relegated from the Premiership.
Based on average points or something like that, yeah.
Yeah, in Scotland they decided to end the league, much as they did in France, with games to play, but did a points per game average, whatever. But Hearts have now, along with 2 other teams in Scotland, Partick Thistle and Stranraer, they've clubbed together to bring legal action against the SPFL, who obviously run the leagues up there.
Well, I mean, all I'll say is good luck to them, because I think this average points is no way to decide a league. I mean, how many teams in Scotland voted to carry on playing?
Well, that's it, yeah. What happened here was, of all the teams in Scotland, only 16 wanted to expand the league to allow clubs not to be relegated. It also means, for some reason, the way it's been done, that Lowland League champions Kelty Hearts and Highland League champions Bora Rangers are not going to be invited to join the league. So everybody's been relegated and promoted, but they aren't actually allowing anybody into the league. So it's all a bit unfair all round, apart from Celtic.
I think what we're saying is that anything except fulfilling all the fixtures, playing all the matches, is going to be unfair to a number of clubs. And there's, I can't remember which club, but in the Football League in England, one of the clubs was moved out of a promotion position downwards because of the average points per game rule. And strangely, they didn't vote to carry on playing. Now, the reason why when they had the vote for the discussion on what was going to happen and the vote on the results of the discussion, only 4 of the teams in the Football League voted to carry on playing rather than decide it on a points. Yeah. And the reason for that, is money. They're all making losses, but they're losing less money not playing than if they played. Haven't we got to a stupid situation where that's the case?
It's cheaper not to go to work.
It's cheaper not to.
Cheaper not to actually do what your function is.
Yes.
Yeah. That's a what kind of situation is that? That's very strange and worrying, actually.
Yeah. I mean, the teams that voted against the points per game thing were obviously the teams that were going to be relegated.
Yes,
obviously.
Yeah, you can understand that.
But it did shock me that only 4 teams voted to carry on playing.
That is very strange.
And that shows you what the financial situation is below let's say below the Championship.
Below the Championship, out of sight, really. Yeah. Because obviously, Premier League and the Championship are shown on TV. There is talk. They are on the back pages. You don't read a lot about League Two on the back page of a newspaper.
And there is not very much evidence at all of the supposed trickle down from the Premier League.
No. They're keeping that to themselves. All right, let's have a little look because it's starting this week. We've had a look at tonight's game, but Friday, Tottenham Hotspur at home, whatever that means now.
Yes.
To Manchester United. First of all, Man United have got Pogba back from injury after all this time. He's been out since January. Kane also has been out since January. He's back.
Yeah.
Tottenham played a friendly against Norwich on last Friday. They played 4 quarters, basically half an hour, and half an hour. Mourinho's idea, apparently, because he wanted to, would you believe, hold your horses, test out some academy players.
Yeah, or definitely rule them out, maybe.
You've had your chance.
Yeah, you had your chance. That 30 minutes at Norwich, that was it. You're off.
Yeah, but Tottenham lost 2-1 in the last period.
Yeah.
Whatever, doesn't matter. Not important. There were players there I'd never heard of, and with Mourinho, I may never again.
You probably never will. No, exactly. Yeah, but Spurs go into this match. Well, they went into the shutdown in a sequence of 6 games without a win, during which they were eliminated from the FA Cup and the Champions League and slipped to 8th in the Premier League.
Right, can I change my mind and can we just finish it now? I was hoping to play on, but that doesn't look like we're off to a flying start.
Well, but we've had 3 months. Everybody's fit again. Kane is back, and Tottenham with Kane are a different
team.
Yeah. So I would still expect Manchester United to win that.
Having said all that, Son's back, Bergwijn's back, Sissoko is back, Kane is back, all those players are back. Well, apparently Tanganga got injured during the Norwich game, so we've already got an injury before we started. But a lot of players have come back from injury. Mourinho, if you believe the Tottenham Facebook page and the Tottenham website, has been doing a lot of work with the players for the last 3 months, allegedly. Lots of smiles and all that. He's back to smiling again. Looks to be a good atmosphere there, but you think Man United are going to win?
Think so,
despite all the feel-good players back from injury and all that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And it'll probably be Marcus Rashford to score the goal, and I won't be able to be disappointed because it'll look very bad.
Oh, no. I think Manchester United will win.
I've had a feeling for the last week or so that is a draw. I think that's a 1-1 draw. Mm-hmm. But the nearer it gets, the more bullish I get, and the more excited I get, the more I think Tottenham are going to win 2-1. But I don't think they'll lose. That's what I'm going to say. I'm going to just sit on the fence. I don't think Tottenham will lose. Let's have a look at the other games. On Saturday, there's 4 games. Watford-Leicester.
Leicester win.
Leicester win. Watford could still go down, I suppose. Here's a team that very well might go down. Arsenal are in action again. They're away at Brighton.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one, isn't it?
Now, you would expect, in days of old, and with Brighton struggling to stay up, Arsenal looking, not allegedly, but you would imagine looking for a European spot. Arsenal should win away at Brighton.
You would think,
but things are a lot different now.
Things are different, yeah. Yeah, I mean, Brighton, they were in free fall just before the break, weren't they? But they got everyone fit, but they have to play the Wanderers, Leicester, Manchester United, Liverpool and City.
Yeah, that's tough.
They look
doomed.
They look relegated, don't they?
They do with that run-in, yeah. So Brighton against Arsenal, what are we going to go for there?
I think I'll go for a draw there.
A draw, I'm going to go for... No, I can't put it all in these words in the same sentence, Arsenal to win, so I'm going to say draw. Your team, West Ham, take on Wolves, Wolverhampton Wanderers.
Yeah,
must win for you, certainly.
It's a must-win for the Hammers, and actually, Wolves need to win as well if they're going to challenge for a top 5 spot. And they were doing very well at the end of as we ended the season, the first
Part
ending.
Yeah.
I think that will be an unsatisfactory draw for both teams.
But yeah. And then talking of a draw, because Roy Hodgson, Crystal Palace manager, said earlier in the week that there are teams that have got nothing to play for, not going to be relegated, not going to manage the European spot, who will be able to test out academy players and young players, and he said it'll be a good thing for the future of football. Palace are kind of just about safe, and they're away at Bournemouth.
Oh, no, Palace are safe. Bournemouth are in trouble. I think it's the final position relegation might be a toss-up between Bournemouth and Brighton.
So actually, that is an important game.
I do think it's an important game. Bournemouth have got, they're away at Wolves, City and Manchester United, Spurs and Leicester. That's tough.
That is tough.
5 tough matches out of the 9 they've got.
So that's a must-win for Bournemouth, and I think they'll do it.
Yeah.
I think they'll do it. And I think West Ham, see, all these games are staggered, so by the time West Ham starts against Wolves, they'll know how Brighton have got on. I mean, there's still 9 games to go, but those 3 games, that Brighton, West Ham and Bournemouth, all 3 teams that need to win, stay up.
Yeah, if you look at West Ham's games, they're Wolves away, the Spuds away, that's going to be a draw, because it always is. Chelsea at home, Jongleurs away, Burnley, Norwich, Watford, Manchester United and Villa. I mean, West Ham look to have the easiest run in of...
They do, yeah.
But the corollary of that, of course, is that they've actually played the tougher teams already and lost to them.
So, doesn't mean they're going to beat the easier teams either, no.
No, it doesn't. No.
On Sunday, Newcastle United against Sheffield United.
Yeah, Sheffield United should win.
They should win. I'm not sure how much pressure works, but all this talk about the takeover, will that have any effect on Newcastle, do you think?
On the players, no.
No? All right, okay. Aston Villa against Chelsea.
Chelsea need to win, don't they?
Yes.
To keep their place in the top 4. One thing you can say about Frank Lampard this season, that he appears to have learned as he's gone along. So you would think that the 3 months off, he will have been working hard to basically get them focused. Their issue, of course, is they haven't scored enough goals for the pressure that they've had and the chances they've created, which obviously is why they're looking at Timo Werner.
Yes, who by the time this podcast goes out, or by the time you're listening to it, may very well have already put pen to paper at Chelsea.
Well, he does seem to be very, very, very committed to Chelsea, doesn't he? He's saying that if everybody agrees to everything and he signs, he will come at the end of July. He won't stay at RB Leipzig to play in their final Champions League matches. So he will turn down the chance of playing in the Champions League for them to join Chelsea. So he seems committed to them.
That's a big statement of intent. Well done to him. That'll put minds at rest at Chelsea.
I think so, yeah. And you can see where he can fit into the team, and you can see where he can fit into the team playing with Tammy Abrahams as well, which I think is the important thing.
That'll be an exciting partnership.
Yeah.
All right, then on Sunday, the big one, Everton against Liverpool. Big for many reasons. First of all, it's local derby. 2 stadiums couldn't be closer together, really. If Man City lose tonight...
That's the decider, isn't it?
That is the decider. Liverpool could win the title away at their bitter rivals, Everton, or local rivals.
Yeah, they could well do that. And if anybody is amongst the idiots who write on the internet who thinks Liverpool haven't deserved it, in their last 38 games... A season is 38 games. In their last 38 games, they've won 109 points.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah,
that is crazy. Yeah, and and they could win 109 points this season from the 114 that are available. In other words, they would have lost 1 match and drawn 1 match, but won all the rest.
You will say what you like. You cannot avoid the stats. There have been a couple of games that you and I have watched while doing the radio show where I felt Liverpool looked to get some favourable treatment.
They rode their luck.
They rode their luck, and there was a couple of decisions. Leicester should have not come away with a loss. There was a VAR decision that was wrong. But, it can go... Liverpool will be able to find where it's gone the other way.
Yes.
But they've still gone on and won the game, and that's the difference.
Yeah, but 109 points from your last 38 games is...
You can't... That's not VAR going in your favour.
No.
That's you being very good.
Yes.
Very good at football, Liverpool.
And I think they'll beat Everton, yeah.
And I think that'll be the day they win the title, next Sunday. Well, it depends what happens tonight, doesn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. If the Wanderers beat City...
Yeah, all right. So it might not be next Sunday then.
Yeah, maybe the match after.
The match after, yeah. Then on Monday we've got Manchester City in action again against Burnley.
Oh, that's going to be a tough game. That will be a tough game. I'll go for a draw in that again.
Oh, really? Burnley are... Well, Burnley's... we were saying before we started, Nick Pope, the Burnley goalkeeper...
Who should be England's goalkeeper.
Yes, agreed. Has kept the most number of clean sheets this season. 11 out of 29. I've played 29 games. No, 29 games they played, haven't they? And he's got 11 clean sheets. That's phenomenal.
And there's if you look at who their manager is, Sean Dyche, and look at where he played, and you look at how Burnley are set up, he's got the principles right. First of all, you've got to be hard to beat, and Burnley are very hard to beat. The issue for Burnley, of course, is getting enough money to get the attacking players to be able to get goals at the other end.
Maybe they could sign Aubameyang.
I think a draw.
A draw for that one, Man City Burnley on Tuesday. Monday then on Tuesday, Leicester City against Brighton. That should be, Leicester, surely.
Leicester should win that.
Which will put Brighton in further trouble. And then for you and I think we'll have to go out that night. Tottenham Hotspur against West Ham United.
It'll be a draw because it always
is. As you said earlier, I'm going for a Tottenham win, and I'll buy you a pint if I'm wrong.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Then on Wednesday we've got some matches as well, but we'll be back with the podcast then, so we're not going to talk about those. What we are going to talk about before we say goodbye, we are going to ask Geoff for his trivia question and the answer.
Right. In the 1973-74 season of the First Division, and for young people, its First Division is what the Premier League used to be called. Mick Channon of Southampton was the top scorer in the division with 21 goals. Why is that unique? And it's not unique because it's the only time Mick Channon was the top scorer. It's unique because Southampton were relegated that season.
He scored the most goals of anybody in the entire season, and despite doing all that hard work and being the best, his team went down.
Yeah, probably because he was the only scorer for Southampton that season.
He's probably spent all season going, help me out here, fellas.
Yeah. Anytime you guys want to score, just
join in anytime you like. Yeah,
that's right. And just a sort of little add-on question: who went down who were relegated with Southampton that season?
That's an interesting one.
Manchester United.
Yes, I knew you wanted to say that. I knew you wanted to say just with a bit of glee. Yeah, because you're not their biggest fan.
No, I'm not by a very long way.
No. Brilliant Triv questioner. Thank you, Geoff. That is all we've got time for. We'll be back next week with more Hitting the Bar. I'm Chris Karle.
And I'm Geoff Saunders.
And that was Hitting the Bar, the football podcast.